What's with cheating? Cheating occurs when a player defies the rule set being presented to them. Players shouldn't feel bad for having the desire to cheat in video games. Technically speaking, it's a survival strategy, and an effective one at that. Not being restricted by the same rules as other players allows you to receive an advantage. Cheating has existed long before the creation of video games. Consider a real-life game of chess. At any point at all, a player could simply distract their opponent and make an illegal move without their attention. Nothing is defining the rules of the game except for you and your opponent's mutual understanding of how the game works. What's interesting about video games is that this isn't entirely possible in that medium. Imagine an online game of chess. Nothing you can do will give you the freedom to break the rules defined by the coding of the game. This is where exploits come in. Exploits are hard to define since people look at the concept from different angles. Essentially, exploits result from taking advantage of a game system in ways typically unintended by the developers. There is a lot of debate over whether or not exploits are constituted as cheating. And at that, there's a lot of debate over whether or not certain actions are constituted as exploits. Take a look at wave dashing in Super Smash Bros. Melee. Whether wave dashing counts as an exploit or not is open for debate, considering the intentions of the game designers on the matter is a gray area. But none of this even really matters because wave dashing is typically allowed in competitive play. Even if some tournament decided to ban wave dashing, it'd be virtually impossible to have a referee watching every match just to make sure no one does it. But all that's irrelevant. The fact is, wave dashing, whatever you call it, glitch, technique, exploit, is allowed in competitive play. In 2007, at the Evolution Fighting Game Tournament, 13th place was taken by Britton Green, also known as Simna Ibn Sin. He was playing as Ness, a character that many would consider to be low tier, so it might come as a shock that he managed to rank so high. However, what happened was a result of stage selection. Whenever Simna found himself on the stage Corneria, he would smack his opponent for little damage and then jump down to this small area. Every now and then, a laser shoots out of this gun, causing high damage to anyone standing there. Ness has an ability that allows him to absorb these types of damaging attacks and instead recover percentage. By camping here for the rest of the game, Simna can maintain a lower percentage than his opponent, meaning he can win if the timer runs out. Effectively out of other options, opponents tend to jump down, giving Ness a huge advantage, especially since other characters can't absorb the laser shot. This sounds like cheating, doesn't it? Well, today it would be. Corneria is no longer allowed in typical tournament play, partially due to Simna doing this. At the time, however, it was allowed, so all of Simna's shenanigans were also allowed. What Simna did was entirely within the confines of the game. Ness doing this is just one of his moves. Wave dashing, however, is still somewhat of a gray area. The fact that something as mechanically questionable as wave dashing is tournament legal, but an entire stage is banned demonstrates very clearly that cheating, for the most part, is a social construct. Consider two countries at war. Let's say that these two countries are both religious and that because of this they will not fight on Sundays. One Sunday, however, one of the countries attacks. They are, in essence, cheating. Both countries agree not to do that, and they did that. And it's an effective strategy in terms of war. After all, what's at stake is monumental. This isn't just a game. Now consider me playing a game with my friend here and I decided it'd be a good strategy to just pick up his controller and throw it across the room. Now, while he's going to go get it, I'm just destroying him in this game. By the time he gets back, I've already won, and he might say something along the lines of,
"That doesn't count."
To which I might say, "Yeah, it did." But if this were a tournament setting, the judges would probably agree. It didn't count. Again, this is because cheating is socially defined. It might not be stated officially by the game, but it goes without saying that you're not allowed to take your adversary's controller and throw it across the room. Comparing this to the war example, we can see that the spoils of war are taken by the victor, whereas the spoils of gaming are given to the victor. In a gaming setting, if the ones giving the spoils to the victor determine that their win was illegitimate, the spoils can very easily be taken away. Consider aimbots. An aimbot is an artificial intelligence used in first-person shooter games that locks onto targets with perfect accuracy. Most would agree that it's cheating to use an aimbot. Doing this against other players would probably frustrate them. But consider using an aimbot in the single-player campaign of a shooter. There's virtually no purpose in doing this other than testing out if the aimbot works. The game is played to have fun testing your own skills, but to stroll through the single player effortlessly begs the question, why? Without opponents to show off your skills to, you essentially aren't even playing the game, or not the same game at least. It's kinda like you're just watching a Let's Play. In essence, cheating in a single player setting isn't parallel with playing the game. It's circumvention of the content. Consider a point-and-click adventure game. The obvious method of cheating at this genre of game is to look up the answers. But by doing this, you're really just following a set of instructions and clicking in certain areas of the screen. A great deal of the joy present in a point-and-click adventure game comes from exploring the world and clicking things irrelevant to the general progression, and sometimes even making mistakes just to see what happens in the game. Looking up the answers kills the charm of all that, and really just turns the game into an odd set of chores. Sure, some players may prefer the help of a walkthrough for these types of games, but doing this still means that the player is experiencing the game in a different way, not necessarily intended by the developers. But to some extent, this can be said about any genre of game. In a shooter, using an aimbot means that you don't get to test your own skills and improve as a player. In a fighting game, cheating means that instead of fighting, you're waiting 8 minutes for the timer to run out. Games aren't always about the destination, they're about the journey. The rules we establish to play games are made so that all players can have fun, and when you cheat, you're essentially playing a different game, sometimes at the cost of ruining that fun for other players. So what's the point? Cheating gives players an unfair advantage. It's normal to want to cheat, because to some extent it's a primal strategy. However, in the context of games, cheating is essentially a social construct. But at its core, participating in cheating doesn't equate to accomplishing the goal of the game. It means you're missing out on some of what the game has to offer. And that's what's with cheating.